there, and welcome to my first sort of DIY video. As you can see here, we are in my new Kate Spade Wellesley planner, and I'm still trying to train it to stay flat. That's why it arched there for a second. But this is going to be my Christmas planner, and I figured I needed some more festive dividers than what's provided. Although honestly, these dividers could work. They're super bright Kelly green, I think, and they're really gorgeous as a color, but the dividers kind of suck hard. I don't know if you've ever experienced these dividers, but they're really flimsy. So I'm just starting off taking them out because I'm going to use them kind of as a guide, because my way of making dividers is more like easy, less exacting sort of method, but they still look beautiful. So here I am just starting by kind of aligning the two sheets, because I tend to work with this smaller sort of paper pack because I live in an apartment and I'm not really a scrapbooker, so I really have no use for the rest of the paper. So I didn't want to buy one of those giant 12 by 12 paper packs because they would have just accumulated space and would have died in a drawer somewhere, and that wasn't fun. So I try to go with the smallest paper pack I can find and utilize what's there. Plus they're cheaper. But here I am having some difficulties with my favorite tape runner, and I'm just using this to align those, well, not align, but to just tape those two pages down. And by matching the print on the front, it happened to match the print on the back, so I was very happy with that. And I'm just going to show you how I did this one too. And then we'll skip forward so that I can spare you, because it's pretty much the same for aligning the two pages. You just have to match up the pattern and you're all set to go. And as you can see, I'm kind of going with a craft sort of in the background, the craft paper look, because that beautiful planner is so aggressively red that I felt like doing anything else might take away from, I don't know, the beauty of the planner. I originally got that paper pack for my tiny little finance planner. I don't know if you've seen my previous videos, but I have a tiny pocket Filofax that I use to keep track of my purchases and my bills and all that fun money junk. And I bought this paper pack with that in mind because it does have pops of like that turquoisey aqua color. And I do still intend to make tiny dividers for that, but I really wanted to use these pages which had that craft paper as the forefront to focus on for my new one. Okay, so now all the pages are aligned and we have a fuller size, more capable of serving our purposes here with the large dividers. And hey look, they're double-sided. But not really, because I really hate that candy cane print. But here are my first stab at making dividers that I used with a dollar spot paper pack, and they came out really well. I brought them out because I wanted to improve on their design a little, because they were a little too wide and a little too tall. So I'm using my wonderful cutting mat here that I had for quilting, and I'm just aligning it up with some of those lines so that I can shave off I think a 1/4 inch from my template. And my template is super easy to find. It's just the Recollections dividers. So if you've purchased a Recollections planner, if you've purchased the paper inserts separately. They come with these awesome frosted plastic divider. Well, divider singular. They rarely come with more than one. And it's the perfect size for a pretty well-sized divider, in my opinion. But since I tend to use wider inserts, I wanted to shave down the size and also do top-down dividers. And I'm using the Kate Spade original inserts just to guide my tabs. And this process I'm not really going to jump around with. I'm going to show you how I do it for all 4 pages, because as you will see soon, that tab placement comes into a really important place. That made no sense. I meant the tab placement is crucial, I think, to the insert success. More sense. And I'm using my giant jumbo, used to be fabric scissors, but now are so decrepit that they're just regular whatever scissors. But for the finer detailing, I'm using my Cutter Bee craft scissors. And the finer detailing is really just the tabs, because I do like the rounded off corners that actual like store-bought tabs would have. But I find it hard to achieve with those clunky scissors. But I'm sure you can make it work if all you have is clunky scissors. I would have tried to make it work if I didn't know that I had these super sharp pointy guys waiting in the wings. I'm using my Coletto with the eraser adaptation just to try to take off some of my pencil marks. And there we go. We have one sorted divider already. And I'm just following the same process here, just aligning it that 1/4 inch so that hopefully it will be thinner. Because the first time I made dividers, I didn't account for the space that you would have to leave around the actual paper for the laminating sheet. Because in order to get a really strong seal, you have to give it a little space depending on how thick your paper is. And yeah, I didn't take that into account. So the first divider I did was the first one, naturally. The first one that will show up in my planner. And I did my last one because I knew there wasn't going to be enough space to have the first, second, third, and fourth tab following one right after another. The second and the third would overlap. So I wanted to give myself a good base to kind of eyeball the overlapping. And oh yeah, here I just realized that the lighting was probably going to be super harsh by testing it out on my translucent skin. And yes, it will be super harsh. I apologize, but I did this super late at night because sometimes that's when you get inspired to be all DIY and whatever. And I also took the opportunity with the laminator running to actually laminate those Kate Spade inserts, because I feel like I want to use them at some point and I don't want their flimsiness to be an issue. So you'll see that later. I'm just rounding off the fine details. And I forgot what I was talking about previously, but I think it was something about the downside of laminating, which is you gotta leave that space around. If you have a crappy laminator anyways, I think. I don't think that's the case if you have like a awesome industrial laminator, but I do not. I just bought the one that was like sub $15 at Target, so As you'll see, it will require many trips into the laminator, and it also requires that sort of border. And here I am just tracing my third insert, which will be a little more difficult with the tab placement, as you'll see super soon, because it will be the second divider and it has to overlap. I tried to only make it overlap the first divider, like half and half under the first divider and then half open. So we'll see if I'm adequately explaining that, or if it's just easier to look at what I'm doing. I have a feeling it's easier to look at what I'm doing. And now that I'm looking at the process of making these dividers, I'm wondering, what color scheme should I go for in the new year? Because I do want to probably shift to using my Kate Spade planner as my primary planner, not just for Christmas, even though that red color naturally lends itself to Christmas, but as an all-the-time planner. And I kind of don't know what direction to take the dividers in, because to me, dividers are super important because I don't really decorate the inside of my planner all that much. The inside tends to stay pretty functional with page flags, sure, and maybe some post-its, but that's about it. So I'm not sure yet. And yes, I'm out of frame because I'm silly and did not look at my phone while I was recording this, because I was focused on cutting those super awesome tiny tabs. And I don't know, I kind of find the process of making dividers to be kind of soothing, and considering I don't make my own stickers, sometimes I feel kind of bad not contributing to the creativity of my planner, in a sense, because I'm relying on other people's wonderful creativity. But this kind of helps me feel as though I have a more active role, I guess, in my decor, which is so stupid, but that's how I feel. So it's kind of relaxing, and yeah, that's my motivation. So here I am working on that third page, which is one of my favorites. I think my absolute favorite of this whole shebang is the stocking pattern, because it just reminds me of stockings, and well, naturally it reminds me of the stockings my mom used to make my little brother and I, which were super personal to each one of us. So like, I was a little punk rocky kid, and she would put like punk rock magazines in there, and also a ton of candy and little tiny trinkets or guitar picks, because I used to play. So they were super devoted to each of our personalities, and my brother was more tech, so his was more tech related. So they're my favorite part of Christmas. Still, I have communicated that to my husband, well, during our first Christmas, and he hasn't disappointed since. And I also make sure to carry on the tradition with him, and I focus every year on making his super awesome stocking. So I haven't actually thought about it this year. I think I need to do some considering. And one year, I think the first year we were married, I made stockings for his immediate family and my immediate family, and that was like their Christmas gift, and I got really into it which was fantastic because then everyone responded really positively to it. And that's the thing, it's about giving and not receiving. So the fact that I went over my Christmas budget a bit that year, means nothing because they were super happy. And that Christmas is still highly talked about in very reverent, happy tones. So here are my dividers, finally all finished, and I think they look pretty awesome. Now, I definitely do punch holes in my dividers before I send them through the laminator, and then I also punch them after they've been in the laminator, just to get that chance for a better seal, because there's always the chance that the laminator will actually heat up the little wells of those holes and make that stronger seal. It's not super likely since I have such a crappy laminator, but it's a possibility, so why not err on the positive side? And I just used the Kate Spade divider as a guideline for the first one, and then I use my first divider as a guideline for the rest of the dividers. That is also something I wanted to improve upon my first trial with those fall dividers, because I used the Recollections divider as the template for the holes for each one of the dividers, and the consistency was a little off. But doing this, using the first divider as a template for all of it, it leads to consistent holes. Huzzah! So now I believe, yes, it is time for the laminator. And off camera, because it would be really boring, I ran all of these dividers through. I put 2 in a page, although I'm pretty confident if I had finagled it a little bit more I could have put 3 in a page, but I wanted to make sure I had that border available to all of them. And I also did that to the Kate Spade dividers, which are on the side already cut and trimmed. And now I'm just trimming them and running them through once more. Although once more for the time being, because they will go in again, because my confidence in my laminator is waning, I believe. And I think I got a little too close, actually. I haven't noticed that the dividers are necessarily splitting, which would be the case if the seal wasn't tight enough. The laminating material would start to split on either end and the paper would be exposed. I haven't necessarily experienced that just yet, but I think it's just around the corner, so it's a good thing these will only be in use for about 2 months, or really just 1 month, I think. Black Friday until, let's say day after Christmas. Which means I gotta think about those New Year dividers. Guys, hit me with some suggestions, because I'm completely lost. And I think that might have a lot to do with the inside being so red and those rings being so brilliantly gold. I just don't know what direction to take it in. I was thinking maybe, I've seen a lot of marble dividers recently, and I know that's a trend that is also on its way out, but I thought that might be cool. I just don't know yet. I think it might need to be a neutral, so maybe I'll use some wood scrapbook paper or something like that. I have no idea. So now I am attempting to punch those holes again, which can be difficult if you're using Well, one, if you're using kind of a crappy hole punch like mine, I think all of the use it's been getting recently has kind of gummed up its operating works, so it's becoming a little more difficult. And it's a little difficult when you accidentally catch some of the paper instead of just the laminating part, as you saw with that first one. But yay, they're all punched now with the magic of editing. So now I'm just gonna run them again, just to be super sure. I think in total I ran these through my laminator 5 times. Once when I first put them in those 8.5 by 11 sheets. Then I flipped them over and ran them through again while they were still in the sheet. Then I trimmed them and ran them through again. Then I hole punched them and running them through again. So yeah, it's kind of a tedious process when you get to that point, but I figure if you took so long to make them and to pick out the paper, the least you could do is give it a fighting chance to survive. And last but not least, I'm kind of just trimming the edges a little more so they look just a little bit more put together. And I'm using those cutter bee scissors because the detailing's a little bit more fine and I don't want to cut off too much of the lamination stuff. Looking at it, I probably should have rounded all the corners. It might have appeared better for it, but oh well, the tabs look awesome, and that was my concern because that's what I would see all the time. So here, I'm just placing those dividers in my planner for the first time. It was like the true test to make sure they were tall enough and wide enough, and I think I got super lucky, and even though I trimmed them down, they still work. I think the height's perfect. I think I maybe could have positioned those holes a little lower, maybe just a fraction, because I don't know, it appears like the dividers are just a fraction too short for the paper, but they're definitely wider, so that's important, especially if I go back to my Recollections inserts, which are wider naturally. So yay, huzzah, and they fit, they look awesome, as you can see. Not that I'm biased or anything. And that's just a hypothetical setup. That's not actually how I'm gonna set it up. And yeah, it even closes. Awesome sauce. And here's what it looks like now. I just put the Kate Spade ones back in after laminating them, but they look just as awesome as before.